Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Manilone S1 Blue Fumé Enamel Dial. This watch is available from manilone.com on pre-order for $810 which is €695 respectively. The watch is available in the following colour options: blue, champagne, purple and green respectively. Of the four colour options, I think this blue version is the best looking. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a solid wooden watch box, which is housed inside this outer black cardboard box. On the lid we have the Manilone logo in gilt and the brand motto, "Every piece is unique," as well as the website manilone.com. So one removes the lid to the base, which is a snug fit, pulls down the flap, and inside the solid wooden watch box is protected in shipping by this white fabric bag. So I'll take out the watch box and show it to you. Now, credit where credit's due, because Manilone could have taken the less expensive default option of just using a plastic or cardboard watch box. Bearing in mind this is a mid-tier piece, but we're at the lower end of the mid-tier between €500 and €5,000 at €695 respectively. This is a very high quality solid wooden watch box. Black piano lacquer finish to it. On the lid it has the Manilone logo in gilt, which is very high definition printing, and every side of it is finished with black piano lacquer to a flawless standard. We've got metal hinges which are gilt plated, and good attention to detail because on the base we have this panel which is made from black felt, and this serves a purpose because it prevents the solid wooden watch box sliding around on a polished or lacquered desktop or tabletop and scuffing and scratching it. Excellent quality. Has a nice heft to it, feels solid, and I really like its solid wood, not plastic, which is made to look like wood. So hinge lid. The interior is fully upholstered with contrasting red velour fabric to a good standard, and again we have the Manilone gilt logo with high definition printing. Base also has a glossy finish to it which complements the exterior, and there's a cutout in the base which houses this red upholstered padded pillow cushion which is what sits upon, and this base is removable, as you can see. The cutout is fully upholstered and every side of it is upholstered to a very good standard. This is excellent presentation at €695. Base is also fully lined with contrasting red velour fabric to a good standard, and there's a cutout in the base which houses the items which I'll show you. So I really like the watch box. Immediately one gets the impression that this Manilone S1 Blue Fumé Enamel Dial is a high quality piece. This is the plastic warranty card that comes with the piece. On the reverse it details the terms and conditions of the 2-year international warranty, and it has the date of issue, which is the date of purchase. There's also a contact email should you wish to make a warranty claim during the 2-year period. The email is service@manilone.com. Excellent to see 2 years of warranty. In the mid-tier it's mandatory, it's the industry standard. 12 months of warranty is acceptable for low-tier pieces between €0 and €500 price point, but when one gets to the mid-tier, €500 to €5,000 price point, it has to be 2 years plus. So excellent to see that. Now, as an alternative to the mesh bracelet fitted to the head of the piece, one gets this leather strap. So genuine leather strap, underside has a contrasting cream liner to it. Manilone debossed, and we've got quick release stainless steel spring bars which are the correct choice. That negates the need for a spring bar tool. Does feel quite stiff because it's a padded leather strap, but I'm confident with daily wear it's going to break in and become very soft and supple, and therefore very comfortable. On the buckle and tang side we have two keepers, correctly proportioned. First one is fixed, stitched either side as one would expect. Second keeper slides. Buckle and tang is solid 316L grade stainless steel. Flawless mirror polishing to the top side, underside and flanks. Manilone text logo engraved with high definition engraving. No sharp edges, no burrs to the undercuts or the corners. It's very well finished, and I like the quality of the mirror polishing. Now, this strap will fit from a minimum 6-inch wrist size up to a maximum 7.5-inch wrist size. But however, something to note, if you have a large 8-inch wrist size, you're going to need a longer strap. However, I think they've missed an opportunity because, as I've detailed, this Manilone S1 is available in the following colour options: blue, champagne, purple and green. This strap is grey. Now, of course, grey does not match any of the colour options of the dials: blue, champagne, purple or green. I think they should have colour matched the leather straps to match the colour of the respective dials. For example, this has a blue dial. They should have used the dark blue strap to match it, because grey doesn't really complement it. This would look better with a black strap or alternatively a blue strap, but grey really doesn't make it look very aesthetically pleasing. But this is subjective. Some collectors might like the grey strap. As you can see, plenty of slots in the strap, and as I've detailed, 6-inch minimum, 7.5-inch maximum. The grey stitching matches the grey leather, nice grained finish to it. They've made the correct decision by using a calf leather strap, but however, I'm going to be critical of the finish. Not in terms of quality, but when I say critical, it's because it's matte. This piece is clearly intended to be a dress piece or alternatively a daily wear piece, because it does have a very aesthetically pleasing blue Fumé enamel dial. And of course it does come on this mesh bracelet, but matte straps really fit daily wear pieces, but they're not really appropriate for dress pieces. Dress pieces look better with a glossy, shiny strap, regardless of colour. This would look far better as a dress piece if it had a glossy black strap or alternatively glossy navy blue strap. That's a mistake. Really, matte gives it more of a daily wear piece, and I really think it doesn't match. Now, as you can see on the underside, it's debossed with 20 for 20mm lug width and genuine leather. Quality of the finishing is good. Does feel stiffer than Hirsch calf leather strap, and also feels stiffer than a Horween shell cordovan strap, so the quality isn't as good as the aforementioned, but it is okay, and I do think it's going to break in and become comfortable with daily wear. So really the only thing that's absent is the owner's instruction manual, either in a plastic card with a QR code or alternatively printed booklet. That's something I'd like to see Manilone introduce. But bear in mind, this is on pre-order, so therefore they do have time to produce owner's instruction manuals and introduce them into their production models. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 38.5mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 45.5mm, a thickness of 11.4mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The mesh strap is solid 316L grade stainless steel, and it's straight and parallel, doesn't taper, so 20mm at the lugs, 20mm at the 2-button push deploying clasp. Now, I'm going to be critical of the clasp. This is a pressed 316L grade stainless steel clasp versus a milled stainless steel clasp. This is the one negative of this piece I want you to be mindful of. The gauge is very light, and really this does not say to me €695. This does not say to me mid-tier piece between €500 and €5,000. One can be magnanimous about this kind of pressed deploying clasp on low-tier pieces. For example, if this were below €100, this would be expected, or even between €0 and €500 in the low tier. If it were a Chinese made piece, one could be magnanimous, but not at €695. It has to be a solid milled 316L grade stainless steel clasp, ideally with micro adjustment, or as an alternative, a cut to length mesh bracelet, and as an alternative to a deployant, they could simply use a buckle and tang, or a micro adjustment with ratcheting mechanism. But nonetheless, problem with this is it's very light gauge. The other problem is the mesh strap is very thick, and you can see what we've got here is 3 layers, because we've got the external layer of the mesh strap, then we've got the clasp internals which are pressed, then we've got another layer of mesh strap. Now I'll show you in the wrist shots the problem with this. It compounds it because it makes it very thick, and it shouldn't be so thick because this uses a pressed internal rather than being solid milled. Now again, if this were below €100 in the low tier, one could be magnanimous about a pressed 316L grade stainless steel internals, but this is not €695 level. They really need to be using a solid milled 316L grade stainless steel internals to the clasp. As you can see, this is a clear production cost cutting measure, and I consider it to be a production cost cutting measure too far, therefore I'm heavily critical of it. But on a positive note, it's easy to adjust. Rather than cutting the mesh strap to length, it's rather like a Casio metal bracelet or strap, because you can easily adjust it with this flip lock, as you can see. So it is easy to size. That's the benefit. It is secure, but problem is the actual mesh portion of it is far too thick, and really for a dress piece or a daily wear piece, this is far too much thickness on the clasp. I'd like to see them refine it with a thinner mesh bracelet. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a box top hat double dome sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished alpha handset. The alpha hands are faceted rather than being flat. They're diamond cut, and then they are nickel plated, so they're made from brass, which is diamond cut to precision, and then the quality of the mirror polishing to the nickel plating is exceptional. Quality of the faceted alpha hands really is stellar. I like the proportions, and it gives the piece a vintage aesthetic, or alternatively an Art Deco aesthetic, and it also complements the use of Breguet style numerals on the enamel dial. The dial is my favourite aspect of the piece. Now, of the 4 colour options, blue, champagne, purple and green, this blue version of the Fumé enamel dial is definitely the best looking. Has a textured finish to it, so it's not smooth as per a sunray dial or alternatively glossy enamel dial that we're all familiar with. It does have a slight texture, but it also has a metallic finish. Now the thing I like about it is it's a gradient dial, so the colour of the blue in the centre is a lighter blue, like an electric blue, but at the circumference it graduates to a darker navy blue. And I really like the gradient property of it. The other thing is it has a metallic finish. Now, when I say metallic, it's not metallic as per a sunray dial. It has a metallic finish because of the enamel is translucent. It allows light through it, but it's not transparent, so it's not perfectly see-through. And the enamel is layered, and then it's fired in a kiln. And of course, that then sets it, it cures it into this absolutely mesmerising blue Fumé enamel finish. Quality of the execution of the Fumé dial is stellar, and it really does justify the price point of the piece. And I think the dial alone is reason to purchase the piece. Quality of the printing to the Breguet style numerals is high definition and crisp. It's sharp, it's not too thick, it's not too blurry. I really like the quality of the printing. And the Breguet font really does fit the aesthetic of a dress piece, or alternatively a daily wear piece. And the alpha hands are the correct choice for Breguet style numerals. What I like about the dial: it's a symmetrical dial versus an asymmetrical dial, because we don't have any date complication, because this is powered by the Miyota Caliber 90S5, which is a no-date caliber. We simply have Manilone's text logo at the 12 o'clock position. For example, we don't have automatic printed on the dial at 6. We don't have the water resistance rating, which is 50 metres. This is negligible information for a daily wear or dress piece. Often low-tier brands and low-tier micro brands and mid-tier brands and mid-tier micro brands make this common mistake. They print the specification on the dial as per a dive piece, for example, automatic and the water resistance rating. But for a daily wear dress piece, this clutters the dial. It makes it look too busy, too cluttered, and therefore it spoils the aesthetic. What I like about this piece is the rail track chaptering, which has white minute ticks, and the printing of the rail track chaptering is high definition and crisp. Subjectively, one can be critical of the fonts used for Manilone. I appreciate the text logo is very well done, but I think a cursive text logo would have looked better, because this is a daily wear or dress piece. Cursive text fonts are more aesthetically pleasing. Alternatively, Garamond fonts, which is heavily serified as per Rolex. I like that style of font. I dislike this kind of font because it does look similar to Arial in capitals, and although it does have some unique characteristics such as the A and the letter E, really, it looks too block-like, and I think for a dress piece or a daily wear piece, this kind of logo in capital letters would look better in cursive fonts. But this is subjective. For the majority of collectors, I appreciate this is not going to be detrimental. So, box top pad crystal, which is double domed, curved on the underside, curved on the top side, does add 2mm of thickness to the head of the piece, but I'm pleasantly surprised. This piece is only 11.4, even though it has an exhibition caseback, which is sapphire crystal glazed. So, they've made the correct decision here, and I want to give due credit to Manilone here, because they could have taken the less expensive default option of using the NH38, for example, which of course would have reduced production costs per piece and maximised profit margin per piece for Manilone. But the benefit of using the Miyota Caliber 90S5 is it's a premium 9000 series grade of caliber, but it's also much thinner than the NH38. This means this piece is not 13mm thick plus, it's only 11.4, even though it has a box top pack crystal with 2mm of thickness plus the exhibition caseback. Let's look at the bezel and case in detail. So, flat profile bezel, flawless mirror polishing to it, and the edge of it is also mirror polished to a very high standard. The chamfer on the top edge deletes the edge, and it's very well finished. Case has two different finishes on the flanks. So, on the tips of the flanks, at the lug end, we've got mirror polished flanks, but the centre section is longitudinally brushed satin finishing with a beautiful lustre to it. Nice large bevels on the undercuts to the flanks, that deletes the sharp edges. This enhances comfort level and feel good factor. They've done a very good job of profiling the lugs, nice curvature. Top of the lugs are mirror polished. However, I'm going to be critical of the choice of finishing in between the lugs. Now, the reason why I'm critical is because with low tier pieces, the first error I look at with a mirror polished case, when it has mirror polished tops of the lugs and flanks, is in between the lugs. The reason why I say this is because low tier brands and low tier micro brands often use the production cost cutting measure of brushed satin finishing in between the lugs. Mirror polishing in between the lugs increases production cost per piece, therefore diminishes profit margin per piece. So brushed satin finishing is a cost cutting measure. It's not as aesthetically pleasing on a dress piece or a daily wear piece. This should be mirror polished. This is a mid-tier piece. One cannot be magnanimous about brushed satin finishing in between the lugs on a mid-tier daily wear or dress piece. It has to be mirror polished to match the top of the curved profile to the lugs and the tips of the lugs, which are also mirror polished to match the flanks of the mesh bracelet. They really should have mirror polished it. Brushed satin finishing is done to a beautiful lustre. They've done a good job of it, but it's just the wrong finish. That's the point I'm making. Subjectively, one could argue, well, they have brushed satin finished the centre section of the flanks to a beautiful lustre, and therefore the brushed satin finishing in between the lugs does match that. That's fair enough. But for a dress piece, mirror polished bezel, mirror polished flanks, mirror polished top of the lugs, bracelet is clearly mirror polished throughout, top side, underside and flanks. This just needs to be mirror polished in between the lugs. They've done this really to reduce production costs in order to maximise profit margin per piece. That's the reality. Let's look at the bracelet in detail. So as I've detailed, as an alternative to the leather strap included, the watch comes fitted with this mesh bracelet, which is suitable. Normally I'd be critical of a bracelet on a 38.5 not tapering, being straight and parallel, but in this case I'm not going to be critical because mesh bracelets do look aesthetically pleasing on a daily wear or dress piece with a straight parallel bracelet versus a tapered bracelet. For example, they could have tapered this from 20 to 16, which is the perfection personified taper that's often referred to in my previous reviews, but on a mesh bracelet 20 to 20 is acceptable. Let's check the articulation. So, the spring bar is a good tight fit in between the lugs. Nice mirror polished end cap to it, which is good. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Flows nicely. Now, it's not as flexible and it doesn't flow. It's not as fluid as an oyster bracelet, jubilee bracelet, beads of rice bracelet or a flat link bracelet respectively, which are the alternative industry standards. In terms of articulation, it doesn't feel stiff, doesn't kink, doesn't pull arm hairs, that's the benefit, and it's not sloppy. So it's not a loose bracelet, it's nice and tight. They've done a very good job of the finishing. There's no sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge of the flanks, doesn't pull arm hairs, doesn't scratch the wrist, so it is very comfortable. Quality of the mirror polishing to the top side, underside and flanks is fantastic. Beautiful shine to it, and it makes a refreshing change from just using the default option of a Jubilee style, oyster style, flat link or beads of rice style bracelet on this head of the piece. This does give the piece a vintage daily wear, alternatively dress watch aesthetic, so it's a good choice. But negative is, it's far too thick. This is the kind of thickness one would expect with a mesh bracelet fitted to a dive piece to give it a vintage aesthetic like a 1960s dive piece. But it's not appropriate for a daily wear or dress piece, yet it's durable and robust due to the thickness of the links. That's the positive. But problem with this is, and I'll show you in the wrist shot, this bracelet is far too thick. There's no need to have this kind of thickness. We're not looking at a dive piece here. This is a 50-metre water resistant daily wear or dress piece. And it's clearly meant to be a dress piece with this blue Fumé Enamel dial and the Breguet style numerals and the alpha hands. It has an Art Deco or vintage aesthetic to it, so it's clearly a dress piece or daily piece. But look at the thickness. This has far too much meat on it. Now, it doesn't add too much heft to the piece. It's only 134 grams, which is okay. But in terms of comfort level, problem is, it's not as fluid as it could be. It doesn't flex as much as it could be due to the thickness of the links. They don't allow for articulation. If they'd used thinner links and also larger gaps in between the links, that would have improved the articulation. Now, it does flow around the bracelet, flow around the wrist okay. It is comfortable, but the point is it's just too thick visually. That's the point I'm making. The other problem is when you size the clasp. Now, I'm just going to do this to show you again. For example, on a smaller wrist, this is how it's going to look in reality. If you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, because the underside is going to overlap beneath it, beneath the clasp and also the exterior. You've now got 3 layers, as you can see. Now you can see the problem with the thickness. On a dive piece, if you had a large 7 to 8 inch wrist, it's not detrimental, but if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, and you're going to be wearing this as a daily wear or dress piece, far too much bulk. Look at it. And really it's not down to the internals because it's pressed, as you can see. This is very thin versus being solid milled. The problem is the thickness of the actual mesh bracelet itself. It's far too thick. They really need to slim this down because if they'd used a much thinner bracelet, that would have reduced the meat, as you can see. And when it overlaps, and I'll show you this in the wrist shots, this makes the bracelet and clasp stick out proud from the wrist. Does not say to me €695, does not say mid-tier. So that's the negative I want you to be mindful of. So let's look at the case back in detail. Solid 316L grade stainless steel external portion to it, and it's glazed with sapphire crystal. Now, as you can see, it's engraved with Fumé, Manilone, and also it says Grand Few, and we also have the model S1. Now, they could have engraved the rest of the specification on the case back. It's minimalist, but it does suffice. Quality of the mirror polishing to the centre section is good, no sharp edges. The engraving is high definition and crisp, but it's not rough or sharp, doesn't scratch the wrist. The outer portion or circumference of the screwed down exhibition case back is concentric CNC lathe tool machine to beautiful lustre. Now, as an alternative to a screw down case back, with a thread externally on the case back, with an internal thread cut into the head of the piece, what they've done is they've used these 6 flathead screws. Now, the screws are recessed into the slots, which is good. So no sharp edges to the screw heads, doesn't rub the wrist, doesn't scratch it. And I'm pleased to see quick release stainless steel spring bars versus standard stainless steel spring bars in the mesh bracelet end link cap. So this negates the need for a spring bar tool. Easy to exchange the bracelet for a strap, which is good. Quality of the mirror polishing to the underside head of the piece is excellent. Mirror polishing is stellar. No sharp edges because they've got bevels on the tips of the lugs, which is good. So no sharp corners. Undercuts to the flanks are deep burred. What I like about the case back is it's very low profile and flat. This does not add thickness to the head of the piece. It is only 11.4, even though it has a 2mm thick box top hat double dome sapphire crystal on the front. Now, strictly speaking, they could have used the production cost-cutting measure of a mineral crystal to glaze the exhibition caseback, but they haven't. They've taken the more expensive option of sapphire crystal glazing. Does an excellent job of displaying the calibre, the Miyota 90S5 automatic. Milled stripes on the rotor, and it's signed with Manilone, which is good. They haven't just used the default sterile Miyota standard rotor. They have decorated it with milled stripes, like Côtes de Genève or Geneva stripes. And I really like the stripes and also the Manilone text logo. They complement the milled stripes on the main plate of the movement. Excellent. The other detail is they've used blued screws. Now, I want to give credit here because the 90S5 is a decorated calibre. On the front it does have pelage finishing, but of course we don't get the benefits of that because this isn't a skeletonized dial. But on the reverse they've added blue screws which are heat treated. This does add interest to it in decoration, and if you look at the rotor we've also got 3 blued screws which are heat treated as well, rather than just standard silver screws on the movement and also on the rotor. So this does add interest. They've done some decoration and I think they deserve credit for that, making the efforts, because it does increase production costs per piece. So just bear with me, I'll do back up the mesh bracelet and then I'll continue. So I'll open it and then put it together. It is easy to adjust. Does remind me of a Casio digital watch bracelet or strap. That's the way it feels with this flip lock, but it's just not acceptable at this price point, but although it does work well. So let's test the crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, coin edge finished, nice large chamfer which deletes the sharp tips of the coin edge teeth, mirror polished domed cap to it. Now it's sterile. Normally I'd be critical of this because it's mandatory. It's the industry standard for mid-tier pieces between 500 and 5,000 euro to have a signed crown, regardless of whether it's a screw down crown or a push-pull crown. But however, one has to appreciate this is a dress piece or a daily wear piece. Often dress pieces do have sterile crowns with a mirror polished domed cap. It is aesthetically pleasing for a dress piece or a daily wear piece. I think it's okay. I'd prefer to see it signed with Manilone, but of course one has to appreciate Manilone is a rather long brand name, and therefore it would be difficult to engrave Manilone on this diameter of crown with high definition engraving, or alternatively emboss it. So as an alternative, I think they should have just embossed or engraved the crown with an M for Manilone, but this is subjective. Some collectors might prefer the sterile look of a dress piece crown. Crown is correctly proportioned. Push-pull crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 50 metres, which is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear piece. We're not looking to a dive piece. This does not need a screw-down crown. 100 metres of hermetic seal is not needed. 50 and a push-pull crown does suffice. Benefit of it being push-pull rather than screw-down is in the close position, one can manually wind the Miyota Calibre 90S5 automatic to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. You'll know this from my previous reviews. The Miyota 9000 series are my personal favourite calibres. They're a level above the Seiko NH35A and NH38 respectively. They're a level above the Miyota 8000 series such as the 8215 and 8315 for example. The 9015 and the 9039 are my personal favourites, as you know. However, I also like this caliber, the 90S5, which is decorated on the front with pelage finishing. The architecture is based upon the 9029. The difference is the 9029 is the two-hand version, the 90S5 we're looking at is the three-hand version. The other notable difference is the 90S5 is decorated with pelage, the 9029 is not decorated. But unfortunately we don't get the benefit because this isn't skeletonized to show the pelage on the front. But nonetheless, it's a 9000 premium grade. Feels exactly the same as manually winding a 9015 or a 9039. They all feel the same. Architecture is similar. Putting it out to the first click position hacks the movement, and that is the final click position. This is the benefit of the 90S5. Like the 9039, it's a no-date caliber, so therefore we don't have a phantom date setting position. That's the benefit. Has hacking, as you can see, if you look at the needle point second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the 90S5. Feels smooth. What I like about it is the refinement. The smoothness feels exactly the same as the 9015 and a 9039, which are my personal favourites, and the architecture is the same as the 9029, so therefore it feels identical to it. The only difference is the 9029 has two hands on the cannon pinion, as I've detailed. So it feels smooth. Smoother than manually winding an SW200-1, and in terms of setting the time, feels smoother than an SW200-1. More resistance than an NH35A, but I like it because it feels solid. Doesn't feel too stiff, doesn't feel rough or gritty, feels silky smooth, and I like the minimal backplay. There's not a lot of slack in the gearing. You don't have to take up a lot of slack. When you rotate the coin edge crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, there's an almost immediate response to the faceted alpha hand, and I really like the response of it, the fact you don't have to take up a lot of slack. Less slack than an SW200-1, less slack than an NH35A, to put it into perspective. Feels very refined. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. Has the characteristic 4Hz sweep. Again, you'll know this from my previous reviews. I like 4Hz sweeps running at 28,800 vibrations per hour because it gives the second hand a nice smooth sweep versus the stutter or judder of a 3Hz sweep running at 21,600 vibrations per hour as per the Seiko NH35A, for example. So a nice smooth sweep to it. Handset is correctly proportioned. Quality of the mirror polishing of the facets on the Alpha handset is fantastic. So I really like the crown execution. And it's large enough to be grippy and tactile with one's index finger and thumb, but it's not too large. Doesn't project too far from the right hand flank of the case. Therefore, when you flex the wrist, the crown doesn't dig into the back of the hand. So the proportions are good. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot. Just bear with me. I'll remove my Concord 40. Now, as I've detailed, this mesh bracelet will fit from a 6-inch wrist size up to a very large 9-inch wrist size. Now I have adjusted it to fit my 8-inch wrist. I might even go tighter because I want to show it to you in its size. Now, 2 button push triggers are correctly proportioned. Nice heavily sprung loaded action, opens freely, snaps shut with a nice positive click. Easy to adjust. Now I've sized it so correct sizing method. Index finger can fit beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. This allows for wrist expansion in warmer weather or when one is active. So 6-inch minimum up to maximum 9-inch wrist size, plenty of length. But however, you can now see the negative I was referring to earlier on. Just look at the layers. We've got 3 layers because we've got the external mesh bracelets, then we've got the internals of the folding clasp itself, which is pressed, and then we've got the internal portion of the strap, which overlaps beneath it. And you can now see it sticks out far too much proud of the wrist. And this is the problem. This will be compounded. You'll particularly notice this if you have a smaller 6 to 7-inch wrist because you're going to have more overlap. You're going to have more internal strap underneath. And the problem is, even on my large 8-inch wrist, there is some overlap because it's a long bracelet to fit up to a 9-inch wrist size. So, far too bulky. What they should have just used with this was a buckle and tang, or alternatively, a deployant, but slim down the thickness because the bracelet is the problem. As you can see, it's far too thick, and of course it's not as fluid and it doesn't flex as much. Had they used thinner links with larger gaps, that would of course made it more fluid, and of course the curvature would be better, but as it stands, this is very bulky. Now if this had a solid milled micro adjustment clasp with a ratcheting mechanism, as per a dive piece for example, one could be magnanimous about the bulk, both the thickness, the width, the length of it, but the problem is this is just a pressed stainless steel clasp as per a Casio digital watch. And regardless of the price point, the problem with this is it just doesn't have enough heft to it. It's far too light gauge. Yes, it does have a beautiful luster to it. Yes, it is aesthetically pleasing. In terms of finishing, no sharp edges, no sharp corners, but This really does remind me of a Casio digital watch clasp. Okay, it does have 2 button push triggers. It's a deployance, but the flip lock for adjusting, it's Casio digital watch level. That's the point I'm making. This is below €100 clasp level. It's not 695. Far too bulky. But on a positive note, head of the piece feels very correctly proportioned because 38.5 gives wrist presence, doesn't dominate the wrist. Had they made it 40 or 41, of course, would have been too large for a daily wear or dress piece. 38.5 is good if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or if you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. So proportions of the head of the piece is excellent. Box top hat double dome sapphire crystal, 2mm of thickness, gives the piece a vintage aesthetic. It visually looks like an acrylic, plexiglass or Hess-like domed crystal used in the 1960s. But of course, one has the modern day benefit in specification. Sapphire crystal is harder and more scratch resistant. One also has the benefit of AR coating, which improves clarity and legibility of the blue Fumé Enamel dial. So I like the crystal. Although it's 2mm thick and it does add thickness, this piece is still only 11.4. So 2 things I like about it. It's only 11.4. You'll know this from my previous reviews. 13mm and below is the sweet spot to easily slip underneath the shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. This is particularly suitable for daily wear as a result because it's only 11.4. Therefore, it's 1.6mm below the 13 sweet spot. Excellent. The other thing I like is it's only 134 grams, which is pleasantly surprising because I would expect a 38.5mm piece on a bracelet to be circa 150 grams, which again is the sweet spot, 150 and below for a 38.5 head of the piece. 134 is very lightweight due to the press clasp, which is not good enough, but also this bracelet, although it's straight and tapers 20 to 20, and it is a long bracelet up to a 9 inch wrist size, and I'll actually show you what it's like when it's on its maximum extension, just bear with me. So 6 inch minimum, but I'm going to actually put it on its absolute limit, and you can see it's far too long. The majority of collectors have a 6 to 7.5 inch wrist size. Mesh bracelets like this should therefore be made with a 38.5 head of the piece to fit the majority, which is 6 to 7. They've made this bracelet far too thick, but the other problem is they've made it far too long. Even on my large 8 inch wrist, I have gap, even with 2 fingers beneath it. This is far too long. It doesn't need to have this length. Yes, it will fit to a 9 inch plus wrist size, but the reality is the majority of collectors with a 6 to 7.5, they're not going to benefit from this extra length, as you can see. And even on my 8 inch wrist, I have overlap with the underside of it. So far too much length on this bracelet, and of course this compounds the problem which I showed you. It diminishes comfort level and feel good factor because even on my large 8 inch wrist, let's put it to there, that's the kind of overlap we've got. Even on my large 8 inch wrist, this is 1 inch far too long, and I'm going to put it on my wrist and you can see the problem again. When you close it, we've now got this large gap. And can you imagine if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or even a 7 to 8 inch wrist, you're going to have even more overlap. So this is never going to curve around the wrist nicely because it looks stiff there. It doesn't have the fluid articulation one needs. It just sticks out from the wrist permanently. So what we're looking at here, in terms of comfort level and feel good factor, head of the piece has excellent comfort level, head of the piece has excellent feel good factor. Bracelet is good, clasp is dreadful. So what they've done is they've diminished the comfort level and feel good factor overall of the head of the piece and the mesh bracelet by using an abhorrent clasp. This is dreadful. And overall that downgrades the comfort level and feel good factor from excellent on the head of the piece, excellent on the bracelet, down to poor for the bracelet clasp. That's a shame. But that's the way it is. As you can see, poor quality clasp on a good bracelet on an excellent head of the piece. That's how it stands. Now, on a positive note, clarity of the AR coating is fantastic. When you look at the piece straight on, the box top hat double dome sapphire crystal has perfect legibility, perfect clarity. The textured finish and also the metallic sheen to it, the translucent property of the blue Fumé enamel dial is fantastic. It's a beautiful dial. I really like it. I think it's a very good looking piece. Head of the piece looks good with the mirror polishing. Correct decision by using a flat profile bezel versus domed. Mirror polishing to the curves on the lugs and the flanks is good. I like it. It's just a shame they didn't mirror polish in between the lugs as I've detailed, but that's just the way it is. So head of the piece only, I'm going to say excellent feel good factor, excellent comfort level. Bracelet is good, comfort level, feel good factor. Clasp is poor. But proportions are excellent. 45.5 is a short lug to lug. That will fit all wrist sizes. That's fair enough. So let's look at this clasp in detail because I've been heavily critical of it. So as I've detailed, flip lock is pressed as per a Casio digital watch below €100. Dreadful. It is finished to a good standard in terms of no sharp edges, no sharp corners, and they have engraved it with high definition engraving, but this is dreadful. The internals. It's brushed satin finished, as you can see, and it's not mirror polished to a flawless mirror finish, and nor is it brushed satin finished longitudinally. It's got this matte finish to it. Let's check the hinge pin. So, centre hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, but it's dreadful. Look at the amount of play. We're talking about in excess of 2mm of longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down play. Play in every single direction. Now, if this were below €100, one could be magnanimous. This is €695. We're not looking at a low tier piece, €0 to €500. We're looking at a mid tier piece, €500 to €5,000. $695. Ask yourself this. Does this press clasp with this amount of play say to you €695? Does it say to you mid-tier piece? Absolutely not. Let's check the right-hand hinge pin. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. It's a spring bar. Sloppy. Dreadful. Excess play in every direction, it rattles. Now, the left-hand pin is actually beneath this flip lock, so we can't check the articulation because when you do up the flip lock, you can see. Bracelet actually goes through it, it doesn't articulate, so therefore we can't check for play. It feels nice and tight. The flip lock actually clamps down on it as per a Casio digital watch clasp very well, so it locks well. That's the point I'm making. Snaps shut with a nice positive click and opens freely. It's easy to open, doesn't take excessive force with your thumbnail or index fingernail. Snaps shut with a nice positive click, clamps the bracelet well. So point I'm making is it's not going to accidentally extend or deploy. It does clamp it, so it does do a good job. It works well. But this is dreadful because you can see the excess play in the centre pin and the right hand spring bar pin, it's sloppy, it rattles. And although it's very low profile, one hasn't benefited from it because you can see this should be very thin. But the problem is we've got this bulk due to the thickness of the mesh bracelet. It's far too thick. This is over 2mm thick, and it should be 1mm thick. That's the point I'm making. It's 1mm far too thick. And when you add those additional 2mm plus 2mm, you've now got 4mm of meat either side of the clasp, when it should be 2mm of meat, one either side. Far too thick. So they really need to update the clasp with a V2 clasp. Ideally, either a buckle and tang or alternatively a micro adjustment clasp, but do something because this 2-button push pressed clasp is far too light gauge. It's just not good enough for this price point. Right, so let's do a lume test and check is there any lume on the Breguet numerals. And I don't expect there to be because they're Breguet style, but of course, although they're white in daylight, this uses alpha hands without any lume. So just to confirm, we didn't need to do a lume test. There is no lume on the dial, but I wanted to check because one could say they've missed an opportunity here. Now, I appreciate this is a daily wear dress piece, so strictly speaking, one doesn't need to have lume on the dial, but the Arabic numerals are large and Breguet style. The font is Breguet font. And of course, we've got the white rail track chaptering. So the white is good. The Manilone logo, the the Breguet numerals, and also the white minute ticks on the rail track chaptering are all good. Colour tone match is good. They're not too cream. They're all white. They could have fully loomed the Arabic numerals, and they could have added some lume to the alpha hands. And of course, then you'd be able to read the time in the dark. Because as it stands, they've missed the opportunity because we have these large white Breguet numerals, which are aesthetically pleasing and clearly legible in daylight, but the negative of this piece is you can't read the time in the dark. Had they put some lume on the alpha hands and fully lumed the dial, the Breguet numerals, that's the point I'm making, in the dark you'd be able to read the time. I think for a daily wear piece that would have made it more versatile, but subjectively I can't be too critical because one could say, well, it's not a dress piece, it's not a daily wear piece, it's a dress piece. Dress pieces should have alpha hands, which are mirror polished like dolphin hands, and they shouldn't have lume on. But I think this would benefit from the addition of BGW9 on the Breguet numerals and also add some BGW9 to the alpha hands. Then you could read it in the dark. But this is subjective. Some collectors might prefer it as it is. Right, so let's discuss the movement use because it's my favourite aspect of the piece. So, as I've detailed, this is powered by the Miyota Caliber 90S5 automatic, which is made in Japan. Credit where credit's due, Manilone have decorated it because the rotor isn't the standard 90S5 rotor. It is decorated with milled stripes like Coats de Genève and the Manilone logo, and they've also added blued screws, which are heat treated, so that's good. So architecture is based upon the 9029. The 9029 is the two-hand version. The 90S5 we're looking at is the three-hand version. This is decorated, and as I've detailed, you can't see it, but beneath the blue Fumé dial, this does have pelage finishing on the front, and had they skeletonized the dial, you would see it. So they could have just used the 9039, for example, because that's also a no date 9000 series and doesn't have the decoration of pelage on the front, and of course it is low profile. That would have sufficed, but they've chosen the 90S5, which is fair enough. 24 joules, runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz, which is good. Hand winding and hacking are useful complications and they work well. Benefit of it being a no-date calibre is there is no phantom date setting position, which is good. 42-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. Stated accuracy of the 90S5 is minus 10 to plus 30 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Manilone are doing a good job of regulating the calibers in 5 positions to chronometer accuracy. This one is running consistently at plus 1 second per day when it's fully wound to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. Plus 1 is stellar accuracy. It's something I really like about the 9000 series. The 9015, the 9039 are my personal favourites. I also like the 9029 and this 90S5 respectively. They are all premium calibers, a level above the 8000 series, such as the 8215 and the 8315 respectively, a level above the NH35A and the NH38. And I would argue the 9000 series, such as this 90S5, is equal quality to a standard grade Solita SW200-1, standard grade Soprod caliber P024, or a standard grade ETA 2824-2. Accuracy is fantastic. So plus 1 is well within the stated accuracy of minus 10 to plus 30. It's actually within chronometer accuracy of minus 4 to plus 6. Plus 1 is nothing unusual for 90S5 and nothing unusual for a 9000 series. So I am impressed by it, but it's nothing special because it's very easy to regulate 9000 series in 5 positions too, minus 4 to plus 6 chronometer limits. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch for my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So mid-tier piece, mid-tier is 500 to 5,000 euro, €695 is the price point. Difficult piece to evaluate. Really what one has to do is separate the head of the piece from the bracelet and clasp. Now, to remind you, the things that add value to the piece, this is a solid black piano lacquered watch box. Excellent. This is good quality. This does match €695 price point rather than a plastic or cardboard watch box. Yes, they've got that correct. 2 years of warranty, again, adds value to the piece. Yes, rather than 12 months of warranty. They've got that correct. The absence of the owner's instruction manual, we can be magnanimous about it because it is on pre-order. Inclusion of a leather strap, that does add value. However, the one thing that diminishes this piece is the quality of the clasp. The bracelet is good quality, so I'm not going to be critical of that, but clasp is Casio digital watch level. That's the reality of it. It's wholly unacceptable in 2025 to use a pressed stainless steel clasp like this with a light gauge flip lock, which is also pressed as per a Casio digital watch below €100 in the low tip. Also dreadful. Too much play, no micro adjustments on it. This is abhorrent. Bracelet itself is good, but it's far too thick. 2mm thickness versus 1, that's the problem. And the overlap, you can see, far too bulky. So they've made a mistake with the bracelet because it's too thick, and they've also made a mistake with the clasp. This is a production cost-cutting measure too far. I would have preferred had they used a production cost-cutting measure of using a plastic or cardboard watch box rather than this high-quality solid wooden watch box, and cut the production cost in this area, the packaging, the box. Yes, it's very nice, but they could use a plastic watch box to cut production costs and then upgrade this to a solid milled micro adjustment clasp, or alternatively a buckle and tang, but something better with a thinner bracelet. And therefore that would upgrade this piece. So what they've done is they've cut production costs in order to maximise profit margin per piece in the wrong areas. Upgraded the packaging, downgraded the clasp. And this is the mistake, as you can see. Can you imagine if this were a solid mill clasp? Yes, that would look €695. This does not. It's below €100. What we're looking at here is an excellent quality head of the piece because, of course, one has to appreciate it does have a blue Fumé Enamel dial. It does add production cost, and of course it is high quality. So the dial and the movement, which is a high-grade Miyota caliber, the 90S5, they do justify the price point. So what we're looking at here is an excellent quality, excellent value head of the piece on a good quality, good value bracelet, but poor quality clasp. And overall, I'm going to put the bracelet and clasp together and say poor quality. Difficult to evaluate, so I can't call it a champagne watch for lemonade money because it's not. Bracelet and clasp were not good enough. Head of the piece is good enough. Now, if you consider it like this, is it worth purchasing and putting on a leather strap? Yes. Had they made this on a leather strap and reduced the price points below €695, for example, below 500 on a leather strap only, without the mesh bracelet, yes, then I would declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money, below 500, with this movement, with the blue Fumé enamel dial. But they've made a mistake by upping the price, €695, to maximise profit margin, and then they've downgraded the quality with this clasp. I'm going to declare it okay quality, and I'm going to declare it okay value. I can't say good quality and good value with this clasp, and unfortunately the bracelet, which is too thick. So I'm going to recommend it to you for consideration, but bear in mind the shortcomings. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Manilone S1 Blue Fumé Enamel Dial. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.